Conservatives are arming up for their war on public universities, trying to defund them, destroy them, and replace them with for-profit colleges. Think it's impossible? They did the same thing during the Reagan years with our national system of nonprofit hospitals, which have now nearly all been replaced with for-profit hospitals, which is a large part of why our healthcare costs are soaring and hospital executives are suddenly multimillionaires. So the war is on to destroy our state colleges and promote more for-profit colleges. And their primary weapon of choice is not budget cuts to education or tax breaks to for-profit universities. No, their primary weapon of choice is frames. You see, facts can be pesky things, and often conservatives don't like talking in facts, mainly because the facts tend to agree with liberal positions. So instead of using facts, conservatives prefer talking in frames or stories that appeal emotionally to voters. It's like how the gun supporter tends to ignore the facts that gun violence is greater in America than any developed nation in the world, and that a gun in a home has a greater likelihood of being used against someone living in that home than an intruder breaking into the house. Those facts are instead replaced by frames, stories, like the frame that guns are needed for self-defense, which is usually accompanied by an apocryphal story about how a friend of a friend was held up in a vacant parking lot, and luckily the friend was carrying a gun for protection and was thus able to chase the thief away. The story doesn't have to be factually true, but it's enough to convince people that, yeah, Americans should all have a handgun for self-defense. See how it works? Now, here's how conservatives are using frames to attack public education in the United States. Take what Rick Santorum recently said about public universities in California.
I was just reading something last night from the state of California, and at the California universities, it's several, I think it's 7 or 8 of the California system of universities don't even teach an American history course. It's not even available to be taught. Just to tell you how bad it's gotten in this country, where we're trying to disconnect the American people from the roots of who we are so they have an understanding of what America should be.
It's not true. All the California State and University of California campuses offer U.S. history classes. In fact, the University of California website clearly states all undergraduate degree programs at UC require study in American history and institutions. The only exception is UC San Francisco, which is a graduate-level medical school. But even that school offers a class in the history of medicine in America. But remember, the facts don't matter. It's the frame. As Sarah Robinson points out over at Alternet, even though right-wing narratives are often factually wrong, they are absolutely never content-free. Stories like this are always about something. Santorum's brief comment, incoherent as it seemed, communicated a great deal to his audience by artfully triggering a vast universe of essential right-wing memes. Robinson goes on to explain why Santorum chose to attack California universities, mainly because ever since Reagan became governor of California and began screaming about ending free college education in his state, California higher education has been associated in the conservative mind with hippies and liberals. And when conservatives hear about schools like Berkeley, they immediately react with disgust. Not only that, California public universities are considered the best in the nation. So if you target the vanguard schools and succeed in taking them down and privatize them the way that they did hospitals during Reagan's years, the rest of the nation's public education system fall like dominoes. Here's how the frame is fleshed out. Taxpayer dollars are being used to fund public universities, where liberals are ignoring American history to raise a new generation of American-hating liberals. This is basically it. What follows from this frame is the call to action, which is simple. Cut public funding to public universities. As they die, it opens a hole in the business ecosystem for profit-making colleges to step in and make even more money off America's young people. In her article on Alternet, Sarah Robinson goes on to explain how this frame is created and then passed on through all the right-wing media outlets until politicians spring into action and start passing legislation based on the frame. Santorum's frame about public universities in California not offering American history classes came from a grossly partisan report by the conservative Hoover Institution, which was selectively quoted by the Wall Street Journal and then misquoted by Rick Santorum. And Robinson points out, right-wing crusades almost always start with think tank reports and are issuized on the pages of conservative magazines and newspapers. From there, the ideas are picked up and disseminated by Fox, politicians, conservative ministers, and right-wing bloggers. If all goes well, within weeks, legislators will be paying attention, and lobbyists will be presenting them with ready written legislation to propose to deal with this manufactured problem. So we have the think tanks producing the frame, then the politicians echoing it. Now all we need is Fox so-called news to pick up the frame, right? Cue Steve Doocy.
A new report about California's public universities is raising eyebrows and concerns about what our kids are being taught on campus. The report claims left-leaning professors outnumber conservative ones, and these liberal professors are allegedly using the classroom to push, in some cases, a political agenda. And our next guest.
I give it a few weeks before legislation written by ALEC, the Koch brothers-funded American Legislative Exchange Council, starts making the rounds in state legislatures and the U.S. Congress to defund public universities. Think of it as a well-oiled machine that doesn't depend on facts, only needs frames. But moving beyond the framing tactic to take down public universities, here's the bigger picture about why conservatives hate public education. What conservatives are really trying to do in America is maintain an oligarchy. And now that they've created an extremely wealthy elite class by cutting taxes on the rich, by breaking up unions and deregulating industries, the best way to keep that wealthy elite oligarchy in power is to dumb down the population. Get rid of public education. Make learning about economics, history, and government a privilege only for those who are the children of the ruling oligarchs. And convince the rest of the population that since they're not as smart or as well educated, they should just trust those who've proven how smart they are by getting super rich. People like Romney and Bloomberg. Just trust them to run our government. Just trust the rich oligarchs to watch over us. They know what's best. The reality is, as Jefferson said repeatedly, our democracy depends on a system of public education that allows Americans to learn the facts necessary to make well-informed votes about what's best for our economy and our country as a whole. As Abraham Lincoln famously said, give the people the facts, and the republic will be saved. But the conservatives, from Rick Santorum to the Wall Street Journal to the Fox so-called news, they no longer use facts. I mean, it's like Mitt Romney yesterday going off saying, oh, President Obama, he's the first president in history to cut $500 billion out of Medicare. He didn't do that. He actually shored up and strengthened Medicare with Obamacare. So they don't need facts, they just need frames. And if conservatives succeed in their latest frame against public universities, then within a generation, our democracy may well be lost. That's it for the big picture tonight. Don't forget, democracy begins when you get out there and get active. Show up, participate, occupy something, tag, you're it. We'll see you tomorrow.